I didn't realize.
Hey everybody, this is BillyGoat from Doomed and Stone, and today I am lucky enough to be in the practice space of the legendary Demon Lung from Las Vegas, Nevada. Thank you so much for spending some time with me. I've been wanting to interview you for the longest time. I've had visions of how that would be. You know, I thought, okay, our first interview is going to be off in the desert somewhere in some spot that only they know about.
Yep.
And, you know, you have to bring provisions for 3 days, and they're going to show me some kind of forbidden ritual that only the locals know about. But we are, as luck would have it, here in a practice space owned by Brent Lynch, who is a former member of the band, now with Hollow Leg in Florida. They're playing Doomed and Stone Festival this year.
No, it's not him.
He's not?
No.
That's not the Brent Lynch.
Nope, they fucked it up
It's a
on Metal
different Brent
Archives.
Lynch.
Yeah.
Fucking hell.
Yeah, it's not the same.
See,
dude at
that,
all.
and that is what floored me, because I was like, why did I never make that connection
Yeah, I
before?
noticed that. Somebody sent that to me not too long ago and said,
Yeah,
I think it was in some interview, somebody.
You can never trust Metal Archives
Yeah,
anymore.
and I was like, no, man, it's a different guy, same name.
This is why.
I actually had a friend suggestion from Brent Lynch.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. And I'm like, wait a second. Nah.
Yeah.
It's not the same guy.
Not the
Okay.
same
No,
guy.
it's not the same.
Well, then I need to meet this mysterious Brent Lynch and
I
make
think
his
he's going to
acquaintance.
Psycho tonight. He texted me earlier.
What's he up to? He's in another band, right?
Yeah, he's in a band called the Fat Dukes of Fuck.
Yeah, which you guys did a split with.
Mm-hmm.
And that was where 3 of the songs for the re-release of your first EP
Yep.
came from. And by the way, congratulations on that. It's a gorgeous record. That's still, those first 4 songs are still my soul food. Like, I'm serious. Like, I have one CD that I listen to almost recurrently without ever getting tired of it, and it's got you guys paired with Serpentine Path, their
Yeah,
second
dude.
album.
Which one? The second one? The
Yeah.
one Billy produced?
Yep.
Yep, I love that record.
And it's just like, okay, that's my soul food. Like, I can listen to it over and over again. There's something about it that just kind of speaks to me. So that was part of like why I wanted
I was
to
actually
meet with you
listening
guys.
to that record a lot when we were writing riffs for that first one. So
Really?
That's interesting.
Oh, wow.
That came
Yeah.
out in 2008, I think.
Yeah.
2009. Yeah, we were writing a lot of the riffs right around 2009. I was listening to that album
It does a good
all the time.
job of exploring different shades of gray and black, and you know,
That's interesting, man. I've never. Yeah, that's good.
everything just kind of feels like a variation on itself. It evolves really nicely, but you pair well with my mood. I'm a depressed fuck most of the year,
Right.
so only when I'm in Vegas am I happy because the sun is out all the time. So I guess I'm suited for Oregon.
That'll wear out.
Yeah.
Quickly. You can be depressed in the sun.
There we go.
For sure. Yeah.
When the monsoon comes.
Yeah.
Right.
So let's do introductions here. I'll have you guys introduce yourselves just for the hell of it.
Philip Burns, guitar.
Guitar, you're the riff master.
Shanda Frederick, vocals.
Jeremy Brenton, drums.
Adam Sage, bass.
Yeah, and you described yourself to me as the new guy, but you've been with the band for 3 years now,
I
right?
think almost like getting up on 3 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
I mean, it took us a year to kind of, because Sage is more of a progressive bass player, which the bass players that we played with before had more of like a southern style to it. So it took a minute for us to gel. Not that we didn't see potential immediately.
Yeah, we started playing together almost immediately.
Yeah.
So that felt
But it
really
took
good.
a minute for us to adjust to his style and him to adjust to ours. But now it's like created an interesting sound, you know?
Yeah, we with Pat, our original bass player, he grew up in Louisville, Kentucky, outside of Louisville, Kentucky. Phil and I grew up about an hour and a half away from there, so we all grew up in the same kind of area around the same time, listening to the same things.
And you had already played with Pat in a band before,
Right.
and he had already played with Phil in a band before. So there was an already natural thing. So when Sage came in, I mean, he came in fucking, I don't know, he was awesome. Like, we played with him and we were like, finally, we found someone who gets it, who understands, and then we saw so much potential of where we could go because, I mean, I don't like to call us artists or musicians, but it's like you don't want to keep doing the same thing over and over again. So it was really exciting to have a new challenge of a different sound, and like we are finally like really gelling and knowing where we're going now, and it's so exciting.
Yeah, I mean, I think people take for granted how much a drummer or bassist brings to an evolving sound.
Every part of this band is important
Yeah.
and important to our sound. So and when one person leaves, and every person's unique in what they bring, you know what I mean? So when one person leaves, it's gonna take an adjustment to get back to, or not even back to, but to a sound that you like again, you know? I always, you know that part in Rockstar where he plays with, what's the band,
Steel Dragon.
Steel Dragon.
Oh, yeah, no.
And he's like, finally to hear the music played to its perfection. Like it took a long time for us to get there, and we're there, and it's so fucking awesome.
That's cool. That's cool. Yeah.
Jeremy likes his pocket groove, so that reels me in a little bit if I want to get too wankery.
Yeah.
You know, so I'm like, okay, I'm gonna come right back to this, and it's becoming pretty good.
Yeah, he's a lot more noodly as a bass player than our former bass players. So it took a little while for us to kind of get locked in together. But yeah, once we did, the potential for, you know, going of what we can do as far as adding the different low end stuff to the newer material has been really cool.
But that's what's cool about Sage too,
layers.
is he is stubborn at times too, and when he sees an area that needs to be filled, he'll do it subtly and do it. But I love it, and it adds this whole new sound to things. So it's been really fun.
I creep it up on you.
I love it though. I always notice it too. You think we don't?
So then, what is your background before coming to Demon Lung?
I was just, you know, playing in bands for, 15, almost 20 years. And I had played for years, and I still play with them now in a progressive rock band called One Ton Project here in Vegas. And that's like, you know, blues, progressive-y type music. It's like, you know, I hate having to describe this shit, but a lot more prog and a lot more rock-oriented, if you will.
Do you feel like it's getting harder and harder to describe music?
Yes.
Like the genres are blending now like so seamlessly that it's not so much like you necessarily should have to describe it, right? But if you're writing music
Right.
and you're trying to describe it to people who've never heard it before, they kind of rely on you to say, okay, where's this coming from? Because they feel like they identify with a certain strain of metal.
Yeah, I mean, I used to be really crazy about defining things. You know, I think everybody who's super into metal when they're younger kind of goes through a phase of like, this is exactly this, and this is exactly this. And she's laughing because I kind of still am like that. But I actually have in all the folders of music I have, I'll have like a little text file that just is like what kind of genre I think it is, and some of them are like, you know, prog / doom / goth / you know, whatever. But it is getting very difficult to define because, I mean, even like us, our influences are from all over the place, even though we try to stick to the core of Candlemass, Solitude Aeterna, stuff like that. A lot of my stuff comes from Maiden, you know, well, we get stuff from Pantera, you know.
And then the movie soundtracks of the movies that we are inspired by.
sure.
So there's like a lot of influences.
So it's hard to define where all of it comes from, I think, but at the end of the day, yeah, even Doom as a genre, you know, to me, Doom is Candlemass.
Yeah.
It always was. I didn't even hear, it wasn't until way later that I heard, you know, stuff like St. Vitus being described as Doom. To me, I didn't know that would even be classified as that because I got a record in the late 80s called Epicus Doomicus, you know, and I was like, well, that's Doom, that's what this means.
Yeah.
So if it was you know, it's had to sound like Candlemass to be Doom to me until, you know, way probably 1920 before I figured this all out.
When did it actually become a genre? When would you say?
I mean, when Candlemass came out, I would say.
Yeah, I think
Like it actually
out of all the genres, it feels like kind of the last to be defined and written about. I think you're right. Candlemass kind of brought a certain epic nature to it that brought more popularity to using the term, because what else are you going to call it, right?
There's definitely a lot more bands. I mean, when we were starting out, late like 2008, 2009, 2010, if you were Doom, you were stoner Doom band who was like blues based, and we were never that. We were never a blues based like everything's
Especially the
voice-based, but-
female fronted doom.
Right, yeah, and that was the other thing. They would call us female fronted doom, which
Is a whole subgenre of its own, and
Right.
then you're compared to those bands, and we were definitely I love those doom bands, but we weren't like them, you know what I
Right.
mean? So it was,
Yeah, I stopped using that as a descriptor once I realized, like, okay, it's taken off. Like, whatever was prohibiting that as a common
right.
element in the way bands formed is gone now. Like,
Yeah.
I saw around 2014, 2015, there was a huge explosion where everyone was like, hey, we can do this.
Right.
Why not? You know, it's normal. So it just became another configuration. So I just stopped using it as a way to describe the music, because you're right, it's so varied that,
Right.
you know, yes, I think the female voice brings something to it, but then you have female voices that growl and
right.
shout and bark.
Yeah, I mean,
and,
I've never shied away from some of it because I do think the female voice is different. And I think
that contrast, right?
I think it can be used as a descriptor because, you know, not that, I don't know, it's political in some ways, but,
Sure.
you know, I love a lot of female fronted metal bands.
Yep.
And almost prefer it in some cases. Gatherings, you know, with Annika in the 90s, and a lot of like female fronted European goth stuff from like Within Temptation. Like I even love that stuff. So that's a whole genre by itself. The Beauty and the Beast vocals and all that
Yep.
kind of stuff.
It's important to have a wide range vocally as well, so female can get low,
Right.
can go really high.
And that's why
and
Shanda's
everything in
voice,
between, yeah, so-
I feel, is totally unique to all that, because typically when you hear female fronted, it sounds like Nightwish or something,
Right.
where it's
Right,
like
right.
opera singing stuff,
Yeah.
and her voice is completely different than that, and that's why, you know, we kind of write around her voice from day one because we felt that it was very unique.
Well,
So-
truthfully, I'm not the most skilled vocalist, you know, I don't really know what I'm doing. I'm just extremely emotional, and if I don't get it out somehow, you know, it's gonna, I don't know, and that just, whenever I sang, for some reason people always connected to me, and it was always an emotional thing. Not that people always thought I was talented, because when I first started singing here, I legit had someone come up to me and say, you shouldn't be the lead singer, and I was like, oh, okay.
They're
but-
like, honey.
Right,
You know,
right.
those
No,
things.
seriously. But I mean, whatever. I was playing some shitty bar here in Vegas and
Yeah.
cared. But people connected with me when I sang stuff, and so I'm just more of an emotional singer. And I used to have a real complex about not being technical and not having that skill, but then I realized, like, I bring something totally different, and I can still push myself and still try and educate and do all that, but I'm not gonna overreach because I'm not gonna hurt myself, you know,
For sure.
And then I'm gonna be myself and get it out how I need to, you know?
Yeah. So that was going to be a follow-up question: is how would you describe your vocal style? And I guess you kind of did describe it.
It's
You're
emotional,
expressive. It's
yeah,
emotional. Yeah.
I mean, oddly, like, weird life things have happened for me before each album, like something sad, you know, like a death in the family or whatever. So I had a lot of shit packed in me, and when we went to the studio, it was just me and Billy, so I could just kind of be myself, and he wasn't paying attention to me because he's doing all his stuff. So I just got to be myself and get it out, and that was really cathartic, and so it's really a catharsis for me.
Yeah. Well, my first time seeing you live outside of a YouTube video was 2 years ago at Psycho Las Vegas.
Okay.
And that brought a new dimension to the whole experience. It was truly, it was chilling, you know, because when you got up there on stage and you were pronouncing, I don't know what you call it, a curse or whatever, because I don't know what language it's supposed to be, Latin or whatever.
It's more of my.
Yeah, it felt like a malediction, a curse,
Yeah.
and I was like, holy shit. And then I started having these kind of daydreams, okay, well, what happens when I interview her? Is she going to be hard to talk to? Because your stage persona is so effective, and it's not that you're really doing a role, it's just like you said, you're projecting the emotion and the persona that the song demands, is how I perceive it.
No, that's
Yeah.
100%. yeah, how it goes.
Yeah, and it was just like, holy shit. I still get
I mean,
chills every
there's
time I think of
layers
it.
to performing too. Like each of our songs are about movies or stories that we've created. So
Mm-hmm.
when we're writing, I have a character in my head. You know, I'm not always writing from my perspective, but it doesn't mean that like personal shit doesn't leak through.
Mm-hmm.
So when I'm performing, I will be into the character, and then I'll hit a certain part that'll remind me, and I'll straight up cry. People don't know that I have my hair in front of my face, but it gets deeply emotional, and then I have to pull myself out, go through the character, and like, I don't know. It's a lot. There's like a lot of layers to performing that I never understood, because you're gonna be at different points in your life, but always performing through them. So you're gonna get, that's a lot of the reason why you're getting different performances from artists too, you know?
Yeah. Well, can we talk about movies for a sec? 'Cause
Yes.
I think I'm into some of the same movies you are, or maybe not. We'll find out. But what movies are you into these days? Or what remains a continual inspiration? Because I revisit some of the same
Oh yeah.
movies over and over again, you know. But
Well, I think because of these guys, we have traditions of watching certain movies every year at the same time of the year, you know what I mean? You can explain, I guess.
But yeah, I mean, the constant for Phil and I have been like Fulci, Italian stuff that we kind of got into
Mhm.
back home. We were growing up as kids, and you know, Necrophagia is another one of those bands that was a huge influence on us, and they were the ones that kind of they were writing songs about horror films the way that we had talked about doing it, and we were just like, this is exactly what we want to do. And the movies that influenced them are kind of the same ones that, you know, Fulci, he's got a Return of the Living Dead shirt on, like that's,
Berto Bava,
yeah.
Argento.
yep.
So, I mean, and then, you know, Friday the 13th and all the
Yeah.
typical shit. Recently,
But then you gotta, like, Tarantino's, I think, a huge influence too. So
Right.
it doesn't always have to be, like, fucking straight horror or, you know.
as long as somebody's head's getting blown up.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
I'm into these weird, obscure independent films, you know, that maybe got like a showing in like 5 drive-ins,
Right.
and then, you know, they just recently unearthed it or whatever. I'm
Yeah.
always on the lookout for that kind of stuff.
We always find those lists, like the 10 movies you just sent
Yeah.
that list. 10 movies you haven't seen from the 90s, you know.
Right.
So I found one the other month called The Love Thrill Murders, aka Sweet Savior, and it was one of those that was filmed in New York. It was one of many Manson inspired
Oh,
movies
okay.
in the 70s. I think it was 1971, and it was just basically about a murderous
Hippies.
hippie
Yeah.
cult, you know, that go and exact revenge on the pigs after throwing them a big drug-fueled party in Manhattan high-rise. But I found inspiration around that to do like a podcast where my voice wouldn't be on it at all, but I just have clips from the movie and then a song that I felt like
Oh, that's
was
cool.
really paired well with that. That was like the funnest project I've ever
That's
done.
cool.
Yeah, sampling, doing that. Phil and I used to be in like a kind of a death doom horror band where samples, you know, we were heavily influenced by Necrophagia, of course, Mortician. But to take samples and put them in the right place is a fun thing to do, like
Mhm.
horror samples. So it can definitely be cool. It just sucks because when we were doing this band, we had a lot of kind of thoughts that we wanted to do that, but when you get into copyright and all that kind of
Yeah.
stuff now, I don't even know how that would work. So
It's
we're
too
like, we
much.
just won't do it.
Yeah.
There's a couple samples in the last record buried in there from Alacarda that are buried way in there that you could, with the right ears and you could probably hear it, but that's
Yeah.
the only time I think we've sampled anything from a movie and anything
Yeah.
in this movie.
So where is your sound going now, or your creative process going? How would you describe what you're dabbling in these days? Because you're working on new material.
Well, it took us a long time to even pick, because we liked, how our process is we pick a topic and then build out from there. And we were just not inspired by anything we'd seen, or like, we didn't want to be redundant of what other bands are doing. And so it just took a really long time to get to a place that we were like super psyched about, and then we finally like kind of picked it. And this time around, what's different is we're not basing it solely on the entire movie, but more on a character and trying to expand on that character's life and how they got to that movie. And so it's definitely like a way more creative process. And the only thing I'll say is it's more of like a Catholic theme. So I've been doing, it's for like 3 months, I've been fucking studying sin and listening to podcasts from like nuns and shit about
Wow.
their concept of sin. Then also I found...
Battery. All right, so we were just talking about you're listening to podcasts and nuns.
Yes.
Where do you even find that? I guess you can find anything on the web.
Well, yeah, I mean, basically just start Googling sin and like the concept of sin, and you'll see all kinds
Oh, yeah.
of shit come up. And it's awesome, though. I've never really grew up religious. My dad remarried when in like my teens, and they told me I was going to go to hell because I was never baptized. So I went to their Catholic church and got baptized because I didn't want to go to hell. And so that was like my only experience with religion, and it was kind of awkward feeling like an outsider in it. So it's really fun to explore that side of it, you know?
Yeah, I mean, it would be if you didn't have a lot personally invested in it from all the baggage of the past.
No, yeah, but I still felt as like an insurance, I should probably do this because I didn't want to go to hell.
Yeah.
And then I had all the pressure from my new family to do this, but then, you know, one day you look around and everybody's got their arm up praying like this, and you're like, where am I? This doesn't look right. I gotta get out of here, and that's exactly what I did.
Yeah.
Looking at the Catholic experience from non-religion, I grew up my parents were atheists, kind of raised me that way. They were kind of anti-religion, which is where I get a lot of it from, but to see people do the stand-up, sit down, kneel, everybody's doing things at the same time, it just looks so weird, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Cultish.
Yeah.
It all, and it's like, if you were talking about anything else, people would think you were insane, and
Right.
Christians would go, look how they're acting, they're standing up and they're doing all this stuff.
It completely is. I went to Catholic school
Yeah.
from kindergarten through 12th grade, and I'm not religious at all. I never understood it. I just had to kind of go
Yeah.
through it the whole time going, all right, you know? So
Yeah, there's
I know
definitely parts of it
intimately about all their shit.
where,
Yeah.
there's definitely part, and I guess I grew up kind of studying it, just because I was surrounded by it. Kind of grew up in almost the Bible Belt in southern Indiana, right on the other side of the river from Kentucky. So there's churches everywhere, and everyone, it's just a given that everyone there is a Christian.
Yeah.
So being surrounded by it, you just get to know it, and it feels like it wasn't as in your face back then, other than the satanic panic that was going on in the 80s and 90s.
Yep.
So I related a lot with that stuff because long-haired kid with black shirts. And
That would make an awesome concept album, The Satanic Panic.
Yeah.
Because I lived through that too.
We're
Yeah.
very inspired. I mean, that was one of the things that connected he and I was actually the West Memphis 3 case.
Yep.
It was I got into it because they were playing it in bars here, the documentaries, and having like, raising money for their trial. And so I got really into it, and then he was like, sharing his experience of relating to that. And so we really got into reading about Satanic Panic because now we have someone to talk to about it, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And all of us too were at the same time in our lives, at roughly the same age when that was happening
totally.
in the 90s. So
And we're all outsiders of where we're from,
You've been awfully quiet.
He always-
Are you the one person with the religious background?
No, not at all.
Okay.
he's offended right now.
Yeah, I was like, okay, we better check in, make sure you're all right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So actually, a little known fact is I'm third generation pastor's kid.
Nice.
Okay.
So I was steeped in fundamentalist Christianity, like non-Catholic stuff, like just the really plain, by the book. The word is literal,
Whatever.
and you follow it because it's from God. And I was similarly baptized, full immersion baptized, because that's the only way you're supposed to do it. Is you got to go all the way under. You can't no sprinkling. You know?
Right.
And So I was probably around 13 when that happened, and you know, as soon as I was like 11 or 12, I started like really listening to my dad's sermons, and you know, I would hear like quotes from Revelation about the stars will fall, and then I would look in the sky and I'm like, oh my gosh, the stars are moving, you know,
Right.
as the time. And then one time I saw like a blood moon, and I thought, holy shit! I mean, it really did seize my 12-year-old heart with panic. So, you know, finally I asked to be baptized, and then I tried to kind of be a Christian for a good 15, 20 years after that, and then deconverted about 10, 11, 12 years ago. So
Kind of a horrible thing to instill that kind of fear. You know?
Oh yeah. I mean, you live your whole life with this feeling that there's a presence
Right.
watching you and also looking after you, but also that whole sin thing. Not having to think about that anymore is
Right.
amazing, because you're
Well,
thinking about it
that's the best
constantly.
part, right, about it. But one thing I do have like you're talking about not feeling that presence or whatever, that loneliness as an atheist, that's
Mhm.
probably the hardest thing to deal
Yeah.
with. When you have, because he has never. When I was baptized, I was fully in. You know what I mean? I was
Yeah.
like, this shit's real. Okay, let's do this.
Totally.
And I felt the spirit, whatever
yeah.
that meant. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And so I have felt that feeling, but to also have felt that and know that's like my brain tricking me,
Right.
you know what I mean, and giving me that rush and all the adoration for my family, like that's all what it was, you know.
That feeling of invincible optimism that
Yeah,
your future
all
is
of
all
that.
planned out and everything's gonna be taken
Totally.
care of
That
for
was-
you. You're gonna get out of any mess.
That was my brain chemistry, just totally.
It's a very, and this is one of the reasons why it's so powerful and it continues despite like
Oh, for
more
sure.
than,
But then it's like, how do you achieve? There's no less atheists don't have a lesson on how to achieve that sort of a thing without religion.
right.
But that's one thing I guess I like about music is that you do get that from that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that's probably one of the reasons once I left church, I wanted another community.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And that's when I delved deeper into the music I'd always loved. And
We're all
Right.
very tribal, so.
yeah, that had been banned from the house when I was younger, because I went through that whole satanic panic thing, you know,
Right.
record burning. This week, you know, you couldn't listen to this music, and okay, now you can't listen to the radio. And now next week, no more comic books, no more
Right.
action figures. So it was,
Damn.
it was pretty stressful
See,
upbringing.
that's interesting to me. Just because as a girl growing up, that's your whole life. You know what I mean? Girls
Yeah.
are way more protected than boys are.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so it's interesting to me to think you guys did have that sort of an experience that I did when I was a girl, because people were trying to restrict your music and you can't watch this, and
Yeah.
you know, it's like that's interesting. Maybe that's why we can relate so much.
Yeah, well, it takes a lot, I guess, to have chemistry as a band, and I
Yeah.
imagine it's not only musical compatibility, but personality-wise, and you know, relatable backstories.
Yeah.
So, you know, you're talking about spending time just kind of not finding that inspiration, and then finally connecting with something. Who was the first to kind of connect with it? Was it
Well,
you?
I mean, what I
Does the
do-
music writing kind of start with you? Because
because I'll write an outline. I'll find a story that'll work, and I'll write an outline. And really, Phil and I do a lot of the lyric writing, but we do it independently and then bring it together. Because Phil, like, his writing style is way more abstract than mine. I'm very direct. I'm like, there's a girl, she's walking through the door. Like, he's way more abstract than I am, which is great. But I will find a story that I like, write an outline of how many songs I think could be, you know, where a filler could be or whatever, and just write a title. And maybe just a little bit of what I think the song could be like. And then we'll talk about it, and if they're cool with the parts or think anything needs to be added or whatever, then we'll do that. And then so now that we have the outline written, he and I are now writing, but through that time, they're also writing riffs and, you know, parts to maybe puzzle together, you know, maybe they heard or inspired or something, and they wrote a riff and have a video of it, and so then we compile stuff that will fit sort of the story format, and then go from there.
Yeah.
Do you
So,
wait?
like-
Do you wait until your weekly practice to bring those ideas, or you get excited and be like, okay, I'm gonna
It
call
depends.
up or text or
It depends.
send a random no subject email with a music file attached.
He does those a lot.
Yeah.
He's starting to do that a lot too. And then Sage, we just get like dumps of like a bunch of stuff.
We have like
Here's your weekly selection of bass
there's
riffs.
like a riff
Yeah,
bank.
basically, yeah. Like I'll have between the three of us right now. There's like 100 riffs probably. So then I'm kind of the arranger, so compiler of everything. So we'll have the whatever the album is, 8 songs. This part, this riff sounds like it should go somewhere in here. So then this song will now have 10 different riffs associated with it, and then we'll kind of try to put all that together as a song, throw out half of them, maybe throw out all of them, however, and then a lot of times when it gets down to crunch time, we'll just focus on one song and go, okay, here's all the riffs that we think might work in this, try to put them together and put transitions in and deal with all that, and then once that's all done, they'll have a bunch of lyrics, and typically Shanda and I will sit down with all the lyrics for this particular part of the story and try to piece it all together and make it flow with timing and all that kind of stuff. And she'll do melodies, and it's just like a giant puzzle, kind of like building Legos.
What's the most difficult or frustrating part of that puzzle?
I mean, all of it's difficult, and probably just getting going. You know what I mean?
Yeah, getting
Proper
flow started is
stuff.
the
Yeah.
hardest
Needs to
part.
feel right.
Yeah. My favorite part of being in a band is getting that assembly together, and being in the studio and adding little things. Adding a harmony part that just changes everything. Like that's the creative part is my favorite part about music. So
We kind of all have our own little input as far as like writing riffs. Even Shanda, she'll even though she doesn't play guitar, she'll have think of a melody, kind of hum it out to
yeah.
Jeremy.
I have that guitar app too.
Yeah,
now.
she wrote like 3 riffs on this guitar app by just hitting notes,
Yeah,
and then
I was very proud.
changed
Nice.
the actual riff, and I think we have it in one of the new ones that we've put together so far.
It makes it a lot easier as far as like getting material.
Yeah, we definitely don't, especially because Phil and I have known each other for 20-something years, and Shanda and I for almost 12 years. There's not really a lot of ego as far as I wrote this, you wrote this. It's just kind of who has the best idea, and that's we brought Sage into that, and we're just like, yeah, everything you got, bring it. Well, if it works, we'll put it in.
Yeah,
there,
they've been like, hey, go do your thing, do whatever you want to do, and
Yeah, so-
if it works, we'll do it.
Yeah, we've never
Because
really
things
had.
evolve out from the
absolutely.
skeleton too. You just need the basics, and everyone should have their fingerprint on this. This is everybody's band, and we're all inspired by each other's abilities, and so we're all in it.
Yeah, we've been in bands, all of us, I think, where there's always one guy in the band that's like wants his name on the fucking lyrics and
Yeah.
shit, and it's just like, dude,
It's so
What's the
who
point?
cares?
Yeah.
We just put all songs by Demon Lung and
Yeah.
everything,
You're gonna get known for the thing you're good at
Right.
eventually, and you're gonna stand out. So what's the point of?
Right. Yeah. I mean, I don't think one is more important than any of the rest when it comes to the writing, because even if it was one person writing everything, it would be different every time somebody's in the band. If it wasn't these 4 people, it would
Right.
be different. So.
Well, that's people underestimate the value of inspiration, and when you have certain people around you, that's why like artist communities come up, and it's important the people you have around you. You would not be creating that art if they weren't around you. So just them being there makes them 90% of the process.
Right.
You know what I mean? So just because he writes a riff or he does this or he does this, that doesn't mean that his influence wasn't an essential part of what he does or vice versa. So yeah, that's
All doing the best with what we have.
Yeah.
Bringing it to the table.
Yeah.
It comes together.
Would you say there are some albums that are darker than others, just for you personally, because of the circumstances under which you wrote or recorded or performed those?
yeah.
What's your darkest album to you personally?
Well, I mean, A Dracula was
Yeah.
the hardest one for me.
Yeah. Was that when you kind of did a similar sort of research process where you not only went into the film but into the satanic lore behind it and things like that?
I didn't really I just had a lot of shit personally going
Got it.
on. I had the darkness in my soul. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it was there already. So it was easy to tap into. And really, Alacarda, it's based on Alacarda, but a lot of the satanic imagery and stuff is based on pretty much any satanic movie we watched. And
Sure.
we watched a lot of them at that time. So
You had me convinced. I thought you were Satanist. You know.
that's awesome.
That's good. Well, I mean, I've been
We'll cut that part out of the
Yeah.
interviews. Nobody knows.
Well, maybe we are. You don't
Yeah.
have to be so.
That's true, you know, because you would lie to me pragmatically as a Satanist to
Well, I mean, I've been
keep
fascinated
up,
by,
yeah,
you know,
keep up appearances.
the second I heard, you know, any of that stuff when I was a kid, it was like,
Yeah.
especially during the Satanic Panic, when they say, you know, that was all I wanted to do, you know, so it's like, but it was never serious for me,
Mhm.
like, especially because my parents were completely non-religious. You know, anything religious is funny to them. Same with me. So if it's overtly satanic or overtly Christian, both of them are. It's fucking clown shoes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
At some point.
So
it's-
you're into it, but it's so tongue in cheek.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, if our house is filled with satanic shit all over the place.
Yeah.
Like legit.
No, and trust me, my family, who are redneck Christian. Well, I don't want to say redneck Christians. I love my family, but they're Christian.
Yeah, sure.
And so as soon as I got into this band, because I was never like this, but then I started really having fun with it, and like I would wear satanic T-shirts to the grocery store, and people would avoid me, and I'd love it, you know. So I got into it, but my family would start lecturing me on how like. How dark I'm getting, and like how basically I'm becoming a bad girl because I'm.
My dad is so polite, like, you know, it's my mom who's like it turns out, and my dad's the preacher, my mom's the hardcore
yeah.
one. My dad would sneak in comic books for me after my
Right.
mom had outlawed them, you know, so he's kind of like the cool pastor.
Right.
But he still has sort of his lines,
Well,
and
he's the one that
he's secretly
controls
worried
it.
about my soul, and he hasn't checked in with me, and I haven't actually come out to him as an atheist. But he knows I haven't been attending church for a long ass time, and his church is just 20 minutes away, so it's not
Yeah.
like I have a good, you know, excuse
Right.
other than something's going on, but he hasn't like tapped into that. But the other day I had a Lucifer poster on from the band Lucifer. They had a really cool poster at one of their shows. I'm like, that would be perfect for one of my walls, and just this great little design. And
Right.
I'd forgotten that I just hung that up, and he had to pass it to use the restroom, and I know he saw it. Because when he came back, he just had a different look on his face. We didn't speak of it, but I'm sure we will
takes
soon.
some my mother was extremely fearful of things,
Mm-hmm.
and then I, you know, explained to her like am I a bad person? Am I sacrificing children? Am I killing
Right,
animals?
right.
Am I doing any of this? No, I'm, you know, having fun. I'm being creative, and I just think it's funny, you know. Like it makes me laugh that people would ever think that I'm a Satanist.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you ever knew me, you would know that. Well, I don't know.
I don't take anything that fucking serious.
That's
Yeah,
the thing.
it's
Yeah.
like
It would be hard for me to, with a straight face, to be. I mean, because believe me, we get people at shows and stuff that come up to us and start talking to us about
And-
rituals and shit, and like talking about what they do and all this stuff.
And you want to fulfill that image that people have of
But
you.
most of the time, I'm just like, dude, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Because it's just, you know, like I said, there's.
You hate to break the illusion, right? Because it is.
Yeah.
It's fun to kind of live vicariously in those notions,
Right.
because they represent something. Like there's a sense of taking back power and
Yes.
you know, tapping into primal energies.
Well, and it's still so
and
easy to define, other than like life
it is. It's
complications
another
and-
simple explanation to the
Right.
complicated world we live in.
Right.
Yeah.
But true life and the darkness that people contain in them is way scarier than this image of what Satan
Oh, yeah.
could be. You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, it's just, I've never believed in magic, you know what I mean? So
Right.
I don't fucking believe in any of that shit. So when somebody goes, I saw a ghost, or I fucking did this ritual and, you know, it brought me wealth and power, whatever, you know, none of that is real. So,
Yeah.
like I said, I could never do any of that stuff with a straight face, one way or the other. But we have a lot of weirdos that
I'm sorry.
approach us about some shit.
No, when I was in fucking high school, my best friend and I were accused of trying to start an evil cult, a satanic cult, because
Been accused of
he brought a copy of the Egyptian Book of the Dead to school, and our religion teacher took it away. A couple days later, they had a tree diagram with our names at the top and a whole bunch of branches with different people's names.
Wow.
People I had never heard of, and that was our call. I thought it was hilarious. I couldn't stop fucking laughing.
My friend
That's
Tim went
amazing.
to school in 5th grade because I was writing.
Well, when you're on the other side of it, man.
I
Oh, yeah.
had a notebook, you know, that of course had Maiden and Merciful Fate and shit, and I had written some like I think it was Venom lyrics. It might have been Merciful Fate. I think it was Merciful Fate. I was writing Merciful Fate lyrics on the insides of my notebook, you know, and they called my parents to like tell them, hey, this is what's happening. They were like, yeah, that's the music he listens to. Like, who gives a shit?
Right?
And that was the last I heard of that. But
Yeah, I mean, people who were either too young or weren't born yet from that time just forget out how pervasive the fear was, and how those professionals, quote unquote, who were training police and training community leaders and pastors in the signs to look for, and everybody was just like feeling like a little expert walking around looking for the signs.
Into like Mike Warnke. He's a dude.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. That guy is the best.
Oh yeah, I mean, these guys are they're fun to listen to.
Yeah.
I found, now that I'm not connected with it, but at a time, like, there was a time where I halfway believed
Right.
it,
Oh, yeah.
but then I couldn't really deny like how much I loved heavy metal. Like my first exposure to it was shortly before they took it away.
Right.
But it just left its hooks in me,
Right.
and I was always the only thing I was allowed to listen to was classical music, and of course I searched for like the darkest side of classical I could.
Like that, yeah.
I learned to play the piano, and I played a bunch of, and believe it or not, there's a whole realm of dark satanic stuff
Oh,
in
for sure,
classical
yeah.
music in the 19th century especially, and I still love that shit.
Right?
Yeah, I mean that stuff, like Iron Maiden was the biggest thing that ever happened to me probably in my whole life musically. So I was like 7 years old when I started listening to Maiden, and to me, the stuff that was on the radio, like Rick Springfield or whatever the fuck, you know what I mean? And then to hear this Iron Maiden sounded like classical music to me. It was something completely insane where, these intricate songs that were 10 minutes long and all this stuff. So, that was what, and I tell her this all the time, like, some subject will come up and I'll go, you know how I know about that? Because there's an Iron Maiden song about
Yeah.
it. Like, that's why I know about,
Oh yeah, it educated you in a whole world. Each song had not only its own mythology, but often tapped into other subjects, true or fable, that was just, you could get lost in an album
Right, and that's why,
forever.
the way King Diamond writes concept albums where it's a through story, and the way Iron Maiden writes songs about books and movies is really where we get the foundation of how we write songs.
Yeah.
So doing that King Diamond through story from one to end, but also basing it on a movie, like I said, Necrophagia, Iron Maiden, and King Diamond are probably the three songwriting influences on the logistics of how we do it, I think.
Yeah. Speaking of logistics, can you give us a breakdown on what you're working with, gear-wise, from your instruments to your pedals and
So
amps?
the
and
biggest
things?
gearhead.
All right, let's bring the gearheads into this conversation.
I have options. I like to have options for different situations. But like the full.
You like to have something for every occasion.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Every
exactly.
color.
I could go into a venue and be like, all right, this is what I got to do without having to think about it.
Nice.
At least attempt to do that, But I got the full rig would be an old Ampeg V4B coupled with an old 8x10, and then a newer SVT coupled with, I got a custom cab from Worshipper with a.
It's heavy as
15
shit.
It's heavy as shit. It's a fucking beast. It's got a 15, an 18, and a horn in it. So that would
Damn.
be the full current rig, and it's loud as fuck.
Yeah.
The tone's articulate, which is very important to me because I like to have a lot of bass but still be able to tell what I'm actually.
That's the one thing I love about the doom stoner genre as a medium, if we can talk about it broadly, is most of the bands tend to care about their sound, like very intricately, maybe a little overly so, but on the other hand, it makes some great live shows. Like,
Yeah, I mean,
I used to go to like concerts and fest and be completely disappointed by hearing
For sure.
all the
That's
big
thing
names.
that disappoints me the most is to see a band who has a combo amp on stage, you know, and because they're like, well, I'm traveling light, I just want to bring this, and it sounds the same out front anyway. Like, I want to see giant amps on the fucking stage.
Hell
Like,
yeah.
that's what I'm into,
Well,
you
it's
know?
like Jucifer's the perfect example
Yeah, yeah.
of that. You know, when we played with them to watch their setup and breakdown process of that amp wall was, I mean, exhausting to watch them. And, you know, they have like one person helping them and they're doing everything. And it was so inspiring, you know, not only musically, but just the way their approach to the music, the hands-on approach, the DIY approach, and then they fucking really cared about the sound, how it looked, like they created an atmosphere, and it was probably
sure
the
you've
most
seen-
inspiring show I've ever seen,
You've
honestly.
seen Jucifer live,
I've
right?
seen them a couple times,
Like,
yeah.
dude,
It was the most inspiring thing
Yeah.
I've ever seen. I mean, I've never
It's
seen
incredible.
a woman that powerful, and it wasn't with her sexuality. It
Yeah.
was with her playing and her just pure emotion, and it was just like, and I mean, she's beautiful, but that doesn't even
Yeah.
matter. You know?
Right.
She's just fucking cool. Even guys want to be her. You know?
Yeah,
what I mean?
That's
she's
cool.
really cool.
Anything else to add to the gear
Gear?
instrument discussion?
I play a orange rock verb head. I got full stack, 4 tens, each cab. Guitar wise, I always liked the Ibanez RG series. I always liked the feel of that. I bought my first one when I was like 21. I've just been playing them ever since. So usually you take the factory pickups and put in EMGs. It gives it a little more bright sound.
Yeah.
Crunch to it.
Yeah,
pedals.
his tone's like super death metal-y, like compared to there's no fuzz in the tone, so I think that sets us apart, and that's what we're into. So it sounds, I mean, the pinch harmonics and all that kind of stuff is something that you don't normally hear in our genre. So
Yeah.
that's just what we love, you know. A lot of people, I've read reviews where people are like, pinch harmonics don't belong in this music, and it's like every time we'll write harmony pinches
Yeah.
on purpose and write riffs around that shit because we love it so much.
Like
Because we
tremolo pickings, we did that.
Yeah.
He said we started off with death metal band, so we kind of cut our teeth playing that.
I love it. Yeah. I mean, it works.
yeah, like I said, that's
Yeah.
what we love, man. We tried, you know, at one point, we've written some kind of bluesy stuff and went like, this isn't
It's not you,
this
yeah.
isn't what we like. And then, you know, as soon as he hits like a crunchy, you know, pinch, it's like there's some reptilian redneck DNA in my brain where, you know, Zach Wilde and Dimebag and stuff, like when I hear that playing, it's just what I love. So,
Yeah.
he and I both have a very similar taste when it comes to what we think is cool and what guitar parts should sound like. So that's, like I said, because we've known each other for so long and
Yeah.
we kind of know what each other's gonna like, so it works out.
Are you all from, well, I know you come from different places, but how long have you lived in Vegas?
Well, I'm the only native.
Okay, so you are the native.
Yeah,
in this area.
lived here my whole life,
Yeah.
and then
I moved here 15 years ago.
Okay.
14 years.
yeah, 14, and then
About 9 years ago.
Okay. Cool.
so. But they're basically, if you're in Vegas for more than 5 years,
Yeah.
you're a native.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
Many people stay here longer.
yeah,
than,
it's a
like,
very
5 years.
transient town.
Very
like-
short, or you end up staying for
Yeah.
a long time. That's
Yeah.
a big
Or what happens a lot is you move away, come back. Like that happens a lot.
Yeah.
Because people like they come here, they have fun for like the first year, and then it fucking sucks after that. And then you're like, I'm leaving, but then you go somewhere else, and it's like Vegas is just the easiest city to live in.
Yeah. Is it hard to be a heavy band here, though?
At times. I
It's
mean, it's
good and
more
bad.
punk oriented here
Okay.
when you come to like, you know, when it comes to like alternative music,
Mhm.
you know what I mean? But one thing I am really proud of as a band is we were sort of like, not the first new band ever to come out of here, but the first of our time, you know, our generation for anybody to see. And since then, there's been springing up all over, you know, and even female fronted doom, and that's like, I don't know, that's really rewarding, you know what I mean?
It's
Yeah.
more recent, but it's actually really inspiring.
Yeah.
Just to see it happening. And like Vegas has never been known for that.
Yeah, never.
Right.
You know, there was never a reason for it to be known.
Yeah.
What are some of the local bands?
Sonolith is a local doom band.
Commoneer.
Commoneer,
Commoneer.
they're awesome.
Yeah.
They're like younger, kids coming up doing their
Is
thing.
it Plague Wielder? Is that what you say? That
Plague Doctor.
Plague Doctor.
Yeah. So there's a few spiritual shepherds.
Yeah.
I was gonna mention it.
Yeah, Spiritual Shepherd, we love them, and they're going through a process of getting new members and stuff
Yep.
too. So they're gonna go through that whole growing pains thing
Yeah.
right now too. But they're really good, and they're really reaching for things,
Right
That's
on.
inspiring, and it's female fronted, so
Yeah, that's good. That's
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, there's been like when we started, there was a couple smaller doom bands, but yeah, I mean we were one of the only. That's actually works to our advantage in situation.
Dead Neon
Right.
was this
They were a concept doom band. They were cool.
concept doom band. So
Whoa.
it's a huge fucking influence on
Yeah,
us.
it
And
was,
honestly, Fat Dukes of Fuck, the other band he was in, they were also a huge influence because the first time we saw him, he was dressed like a priest. The guitarist and bass player were Mormon missionaries, and the drummer was the devil, and he was just walking around the stage ripping off and I was just like, that is fucking cool. You can be a character up there,
The first
So-
time I ever saw the Fat Dukes was actually before Jeremy was in the band, and they had a drum machine.
Yeah, they're just two.
Yeah.
And they were dressed like Mormons, and they're up there doing their thing.
Yeah.
And then later on, I found out he was the drummer. I'm like, no fucking way, I love that band.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did too. That's why, when we saw them back in the day, I was like, if I was in that band, I could make it heavier,
Yeah.
And because I like
Yeah.
that's a totally different aspect of music for me to be able to do something really stupid on stage every night. So I get to be super, that's a different outlet than
Yeah.
this,
I want to have one of those so bad. I have a concept in my head. I just have to find, and I keep pitching it to musicians, and they're not interested. But I will find the people who are interested and do my thing.
There you go.
I've been pitching the idea to write a concept album about Enemy Mine for the last 10 years, and nobody wants to do that either. Have you ever seen Enemy Mine?
I have, yeah.
Okay, I got a whole goddamn idea about that.
I can be. You can pitch ideas, and I'll give you some feedback.
There you go.
Whether it
But
sounds good.
The scene here, Dead Neon was one of the
Yeah,
first
they were
bands that we were cool with.
First doom band that we
They were
really
a-
saw here, but
The concept was post-apocalyptic Las Vegas.
and it's all
It's called
about
Dead Neon.
this radioactive showgirl, right?
Yeah, something like that.
It was really awesome, and
That
it
was
was
cool
like
as shit.
seeing that you can take a theme, because Fat Dukes of Fuck, like their theme was like, we're fat and we talk about penis and vagina a lot, and it was just like, but to see people just like do that, when every other band, especially in Vegas, there's a lot of cover bands.
Mhm.
There's
Yeah.
it's all a lot of pop music, and really, truthfully, my whole life, other than what my brother would introduce me to, it was just like Billboard Top 100 shit.
Vegas
So
is a weird animal.
yeah, it was.
Yeah, it really is.
Polar opposite in so many ways.
But until,
Right.
I'd say, like, when I turned, I'd say, like, 15 years ago, there was an indie scene that was going around. But it was still, there was some really interesting bands going on and doing stuff. And then that kind of transitioned, because everyone's like, that's pussy stuff. So let's go heavier. And then that sort of, like, transitioned to that. But punk has always remained
Yeah,
steady throughout.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Vegas.
have you been to like the Double Down Saloon?
I haven't.
It's
No.
like a punk staple.
Okay.
I mean, we got dusty skateboarders here. Punk is meant for Vegas.
Yeah.
You can't erase that.
Right.
Punk scene's been around forever. There's been some
Consistent.
decent thrash bands.
Yeah.
Too. Avenger of Blood was a thrash band.
Well, I think that always comes with punk, though, too.
Hmm.
You know
Yeah,
what
for
I mean?
sure. Yeah, punk has more in common with thrash than our stuff does with either, I think. But there's some death metal bands that heard Goat Lord was
Yeah.
originally from here. I mean, they're the original Doom band, Death Doom. That was back in the 80s.
Yeah, you're putting some names on my radar here. I'm gonna have to look into. It's exciting. There's a whole era of heavy music that came kind of either at the beginning of the internet or before that isn't well documented.
No, totally.
Yeah. Well, Goat Lord was a big influence on Finriz, who I think Dark Throne even has an EP or something called
Mm-hmm.
Goat Lord. It was kind of inspired by them, or they wanted to pay tribute. So they're from Vegas, which is crazy. I had a Goat Lord tape. I was into tape trading when I was a kid, and I had a Goat Lord tape that my friends and I thought, we used to. There's a song on there called Acid Orgy that we thought was hilarious, and we used to do. I thought they were some Scandinavian band or something. I had no clue that they were from Las Vegas. And
Yeah.
Well, there was a lot going on. What was that band that Lando was in?
White Witch Canyon.
Yes, White Witch. So like right around that time, like in the desert areas, there was some like interesting. While Seattle had all the grunge stuff, like the people in the desert were creating a doom sound.
Yeah. I mean, Caius and all that stuff that was happening. It's not that far from here,
Right.
So.
It's kind of the same kind of person.
Yeah.
Kind of same kind of community.
Right.
Once you reach a certain degree level of heat, your brains all get fried, and
Right.
you're the same kind of person.
Yeah, actually, there was a study about that, and it almost seemed like kind of a joke at first, but it was done by, like, I don't know, Berkeley or Stanford or something, and it basically claimed that at a certain degree of heat, you start seeing more suicides.
Oh,
That's
for
the thing.
sure.
Oh my god.
And I always thought it was just, okay, the lack of sun,
No.
messes with your chemicals and whatnot.
People
It's
are
just hard to climb, though.
self-destructive here. Where
Yeah,
if you
they
think
really
about in like Denver, Colorado, the air is different and people are like homicidal there. You know what I mean? And same with like Florida, there's like moisture in the air.
Yeah.
And there's like,
Florida's been-
like
So kind of mold and shit. Who knows what kind of spores are causing people to go crazy.
Here, but they will hurt you in their process of self-destruction.
exactly.
So
Yeah.
it
They like to
doesn't
take
mean that
people
you're
with them.
safe.
You just gotta stay away,
Right.
stay out of the
Yeah.
way.
People commit
Yeah.
suicide in Vegas all the time.
Yeah.
You never hear about it on like outside.
Yeah, they
There's a lot
don't-
of parking garage,
Yeah.
suicides.
Yeah, I've seen men hanging from trees. on
Holy
my way to
shit.
work.
Really?
Yeah, my mom worked as a security guard in the Hilton, and she has a few suicide stories that are like fucked up. So like, yeah, suicide happens a lot here. People come here to commit suicide
A
too.
friend of mine's an engineer at one of the casinos down here, and he was working in the parking garage. Just saw a guy drop.
Yeah.
He was like, "What the fuck was that?" And it was a guy that had jumped from the top last year.
Yeah, people come here to kind of have a last run and just fucking, go
And then you
out.
wonder how doom
in
can be
cage style.
created here. Like, there's
Yeah.
dark ass shit happening
Exactly.
everywhere, but also in the desert. It's
Yeah,
not
that's
all
what-
happy and fun here.
We kind of got that a lot from kind of national places that would ask us like, a heavy metal band in Vegas, how's that work? And I was like, this place is fucking
Yeah,
crazy.
how
man.
does it-
Like,
how does it not?
exist?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
The climate's harsh as fuck. There's crazy violence and crime and shit going on all the time. Like,
The tourists are not, like,
Right.
no
I mean-
offense, but a lot of them are assholes, you know what
Well,
I
I
mean?
mean,
They
we
act like they never left the house before.
had a prime
Right.
example of that last year over at, what?
yeah, no shit, out of the Mandalay Bay.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. Like I said, there's crazy shit. This place is, as harsh as the fucking winter in Norway. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like, the summers here are that crazy. So,
Interesting.
I think that breeds a lot of
Anger.
dark shit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. But
like,
it's,
yeah, I never looked at it as this is a happy place filled with lights. I was looking at it as this place is fucked up from day one.
Yeah.
That's kind of why I was drawn to come here
I know.
originally.
I started noticing it immediately.
Yeah.
I'm like, this place is fucking weird.
Yeah,
There's
I
got
didn't
all the
come-
bullshit of the strip and all of that, like Vegas.
Yeah.
And then seeing what it like really is just outside the strip.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, it was kind of eye opening. I
Yeah.
was drawn to it for some reason.
Yeah, that's what, like I said, I like the darkness of it.
Yeah, I've always been fascinated by it. I mean, I've seen a few movies that have been shot here, kind of indie films
Yeah.
that kind of show the off strip life, and that was what really interested me,
Yeah.
because those are, those are real lives that either work in Vegas or don't work at all, and some of them born into families here, and
Right.
you don't envision anything beyond where you're at, and so
Right.
what's it like to be kind of stuck somewhere
it sucks.
that you feel like you can't get out of
It
or
really sucks.
no hope of? Yeah.
There is that kind of dark side to it, and then as you get further out, it's like the epitome of cookie cutter urban sprawl. And
Yeah.
it's like that's also a polar opposite
Right.
as well.
Right, right.
The certain pockets of how the city is kind of developed. It's
Interesting.
interesting. It's very interesting.
Yeah. Cool. Well, I should probably wrap this up. How should we wrap this up? I don't know. I always hate stereotypical questions like, you know,
How'd you get the name?
how'd you get your name? I actually didn't ask you that. I actually have not been curious about that. I don't know why.
Good.
Yeah, I mean,
I honestly, I don't like when people ask me because I don't want to be judged on something that is a personal thing.
Yeah.
For me.
band names are the fucking worst because you pick something before. We didn't know that we would ever even play a god. We thought we were playing one show, so we picked a name, you know, and it's like.
Oh, you're talking about the name. I was talking about bands.
Oh, sorry. You're talking about influence, like
Yeah.
the, you know, what bands and yeah, all that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, people will judge you.
Well,
based
for
on
me
that
as a woman,
hardcore.
the guys like judge my authenticity, you know, with this shit. So it's
Yep.
like any answer I fucking give is gonna.
It's not gonna be good enough, yeah.
Somebody. So don't fucking ask me about it, or if
Right.
you do, I'm gonna say like. Britney Spears. My first concert was New Kids on the Block.
Yeah.
That's actual fact though.
Well, I mean, and that's just it. Like, you don't have to have like this thoroughbred
Right.
upbringing in metal
But
to.
that is so. It's so prevalent. But
Yeah.
it's kind of waning off, I think, a
It's
little
definitely
bit.
changed a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like I said,
I've noticed some
Well, because there's so
gradual
many
change.
more new fans.
Yep.
You know what I mean? You can't judge people. If they're into it, they're into it. And that's
Yeah.
awesome.
And it's different. I mean, anybody under the age of 25 didn't go through the same shit
Yeah.
that we went through
Yeah.
to be a fan of.
There was almost
metal.
a rite of passage
Right, it's like
for
a
a lot
badge
of
of
people.
honor to be able to know certain facts about
Yeah.
certain bands because you didn't just go to Wikipedia and learn it. So
You didn't have
none
any of
those
that
kids
shit. It
have
was
any
all
of that
word
shit,
of
so they
mouth,
don't care.
mixtapes,
They don't
lore.
care how authentic you are or whatever.
Yeah.
Like I said, I've definitely. I mean, when I was a kid, for sure. You know, it's that classic. You know, two long-haired dudes meet each other and they just start asking each other questions. Did you
Yeah.
know about this? Did you know about this? Did you know about this? What about this? Have you heard of this band? It still happens,
All
but
the
it's
time.
not as bad as
Yeah.
it used to be. I mean, it used to be, you know, constant and like super judgmental all
Yeah.
the time.
I
That
find
was one of
myself,
them. I mean,
like-
I'll admit to it.
Forgetting shit now.
Yeah.
Oh,
Because I have so much swirling in my head these days. It's just like, oh shit, you know, that guy's gonna ask me about that.
When
and
I just rely on him because he's an encyclopedia, I'm just.
I just
like,
hope my
what is
phone
that
isn't-
name of
And
that?
I'm forgetting
Nearby.
shit too.
Yeah.
or they talk long enough that it helps me to
Right.
remember.
I just nod and go, uh-huh, and it works.
Awesome. So I guess just any upcoming performances, tours? Are we waiting kind of for the big album to come out?
We're sort of in the writing
Next.
process.
Okay.
But we are looking into doing a couple shows if they come up. And, you know, we like playing in the fall. It's sort of our favorite time to play. We get super into it.
Have you been out to the Northwest?
Uh-huh.
How
But
long's
we
it been?
really want to go south, Midwest, and then head east eventually.
Oh,
We
yeah,
haven't
yeah.
done any of that.
Oh yeah, totally should.
Yeah, we recorded our last record in Portland.
Yeah, that's right.
And yeah, we played Portland.
So I just missed you.
Seattle, you know, we played in Eugene at the top of a mountain.
Yeah.
Are you serious?
Yeah,
Outside,
that's
yeah.
our craziest show.
What the fuck?
It was a generator show on the top of a
Oh.
mountain. We were the
Yeah.
last band. No one was really even in front of us except for our friends.
I
Women
feel
Giant.
heartsick.
And everyone was in their tents, and we thought nobody was listening to us. And then it went silent, and they're like, "Play more!" So they were all just super high on mushrooms,
Wow.
watching the stars, listening.
When
to
was
us.
this?
Like, probably
4 years ago,
Yeah,
5
5 years ago.
Yeah, so
It
this would
was
be before
awesome.
I got into
Yeah.
Doomed and Stoned
It
This
was
was,
awesome.
and started covering the
Like
scene.
Ariel
Yeah.
Ruin was there.
The giant.
Wounded Giant was with us.
Eagle Twin, by chance?
I don't think so.
That may have been another. There are a couple of these I hear about every once in a while. They don't happen very often, but they'll have it in the middle of the woods. And like, okay, how do you even bring electricity out here? Just have like a super long extension cord,
They
or
have a
generator, or whatever.
and
Yeah.
then- but we were like, because we thought we're going to the mountains. We can like light fires. And
Yeah,
we almost got in so much trouble because
Yeah, we like built this huge fucking bonfire. We're getting ready to light it, and all these like hippies were like, "You can't light it up here, man." And we are like, "It's gonna be fine," but they were like militant about it. So
Yeah.
we backed off.
we were definitely the assholes of the party,
Yeah.
but we still rocked them, so that's cool.
Good.
Luda from Witch Mountain.
Yeah.
Her other band was there that night. It was a cool.
Wow.
It was a cool thing to like. It was literally at the top of whatever mountain that is in Eugene.
Was it Skinner's Butte by chance?
I have no
I don't know. Was it?
Like,
It
we
wasn't
had to
downtown
drive
Eugene. It was like
straight up, you know,
Mount
maybe
Pisgah or something.
We had to drive through the woods for hours.
Oh, okay.
hours
So this would be
and
further out. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
straight up like.
It was
dirt roads.
awesome though. The only thing you could see was like stars.
Oh yeah.
Here you don't see stars because of all the lights.
Yeah.
And so, and I grew up here, so I'm used to like only seeing like 3 stars sprinkled in the sky. But to see an entire
Mhm.
sky full of stars, it was just, it was magical. That was magical.
Yeah, then we drove.
That's so
we
cool.
Left there and drove all night, or drove all
But
straight
we got to
the
see the
next show.
sunrise in
Coming down.
yeah, in the mountains. Like it is a beautiful state. And living in the desert, not used to trees and green,
Mhm.
like to see that, like for me, it was really like moving.
Have you been to the Oregon coast?
Yes.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, when coming up from East Texas, our family moved up about 20 some years ago to Oregon, and you know, first thing we saw was obviously the beauty of the trees and such as you mentioned. Second thing we saw was the Grateful Dead were coming through town, so the whole city of Eugene was flooded with dirty hippies, you know,
Right. Oh yeah.
and you know, conservative, you know, Texas family seeing that, we thought we had walked into some kind of time warp,
Right.
you know. And then next thing we discovered was the Oregon coast,
Yeah.
and we seriously went there every weekend for
That's
like
so
2-3
great.
months.
Yeah, Newport is cool. If
Yep.
you've ever been there, it's like that fishing. It's like a fishing.
That's what I like a fishing, my ultimate, like,
Like a working town. Like
yeah, I want to retire in like an old fishing
Totally.
town, like
I
that.
think you should make that a
I know,
goal.
I really
yeah.
want to.
I've always thought it would be cool to live on the coast. If you could actually like
My mood
eke out a
matches
living
that,
there,
sort
you
of.
know.
Yeah.
I love the storminess of it.
Yeah.
I love
Like
you know,
Black Rock Beach.
Yeah.
and you've got enough sun to keep you from totally going nuts,
Yeah.
but you got that storminess. Yeah, we have to have our dreams.
Right?
Keep us going.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for spending time with me. Good luck on the new record. Keep us updated, and I guess everybody can follow you on Facebook and Bandcamp, the usual
Yeah.
places, and look for Demon Lung hopefully touring at a city
Near you.
near you. Yeah, let's get them out there on the road and out to more festivals too.
Yeah.
All right, cheers, guys.
Thanks, man.
Thanks, man. Yeah.